This is Getting Past Subtitles. My name is Sean Peel.
And I'm DK Lee.
And welcome to our third episode on, I don't really know what series this is anymore. Would you like to inform me?
I don't know. Why don't you tell me?
No, why don't you tell me?
I think this series is kind of botched. I mean, it's weird because like there are elements, I think, of it, right? Like slight elements of
Pretty slight.
like moments where you can kind of think, oh, this is a pretty big moment for this person,
Right, yeah.
And like it could be like a moment that changes them, that kind of coming of age moment.
Right.
I can name a few even in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
For TIng-Ting and for Yang.
Yeah.
And even like a midlife crisis for Mr.
Right. This movie is really like
it's like an everything
like,
burger.
There's coming of ages.
Yeah.
And there's
It
like
don't matter what age you are, you're gonna
the revisitation of coming of age.
Right.
Yeah, there's pretty.
So it's definitely an interesting one, I think. Especially weaving these three stories of like these three different characters at different ages.
Yeah.
And seeing how they, deal with their internal conflicts as well as like outer conflicts, and seeing how that unravels in their life.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's definitely a long movie, and I think the main thing was like I was actually kind of struggling maybe like in the middle as to like what was happening in the movie for certain characters, because I don't know if I got lost along the wayside, because there are some moments that I think were with a certain character for a lot longer than others. Like NJ is obviously the main character of the movie, like we're on the dad the most, but I do feel like even with some other family members were there a little bit longer compared to others. And sometimes I felt like when we were revisiting their stories or as it was progressing, like the later that we got in, the more I was like, oh wait, what was this person kind of like dealing with exactly?
Yeah.
I think even like I kind of had that sentiment with NJ as well, just because like he was dealing with like multiple things. Like there's like his wife, and then like his brother or his brother-in-law who's like owes him the debt, and then like he goes back to like the work conflicts with his company like basically going to shit, and they're trying to like make a new deal and with Ota, and that comes into play. So there's like definitely has like the most mixed bag of threads throughout the movie, and then there's again just like on top of all the other characters that we follow throughout, But I think at the end of it, like it wasn't bad. It was pretty cool to see sort of everything wrap up, and yeah, like I said, I think we can talk like later on. There are definitely some instances where it's like, oh, this is a coming of age element. I think TIng-Ting the most, probably shares that if we're talking in the genre. But I don't know, what character did you feel? What story did you feel most invested or interested in?
I think for me, watching the movie, I just kind of like saw it as like the father had the most like problems and things. If I were to like give an analogy or like a comparison, I think that like the father's story was the most like rooted in reality, like things that he was facing and the conflicts that he had was a lot more like physical in the sense that like it's like right in front of them, like he has to deal with these problems that are happening in real life that are like
Right.
tangible and that are like immediate, and that feels a lot more like, oh man, I have to get this done, or like I have to overcome this obstacle, or I have to like figure this out, or help this person, or get my money back or whatever. It was very like a physical, like immediate, like real world, like reality kind of thing, whereas like TIng-Ting, it kind of felt like almost like a dream, like especially near the end, obviously, like when TIng-Ting goes when Ting-Ting comes back from the police station, and like she has that weird like moment with the grandma, and the fact that like she's actually dead, but like she kind of has that moment with her, and
Yeah, she has
and
a,
that like
dream
yeah, that moment of forgiveness that I think that she has, right, at that moment when she finally sees her grandma awake, and she is able to finally fall asleep. And so like she has that kind of um weird dreamlike narrative weaving through the story.
Yeah.
And I think Yang Yang is the most like philosophical right, of the whole story, and I think that he's kind of the main philosophical through line of the movie, and he kind of like throws at the audience the questions that kind of flow through every moment of the movie.
Yeah.
And I like that, those differences. And going back to your question though, I did like Yang Yang's story the most.
I'd agree.
And I do think that he had a moment of like a coming of age like moment as well. The fact that even from the very beginning of the movie, he gets bullied by like girls, and
Yeah.
he gets they mess with him, throw his shoe, and like like frame him for things that he didn't even do and stuff like that. And later on, he kind of becomes infatuated with one girl, right? And then after that, like there's another like there are moments where he kind of like has a realization, like especially at the end when he he wrote that speech or whatever, and then he starts talking to his grandma at the very end. I think that is a pretty significant arc for him as well, in terms of how he comes to realize his own like ideas, because in the beginning he didn't want to talk with his grandma, right? When she was in a coma, he refused to talk to her, and going through all of that for him as well, I think kind of changed him in a certain way. And I think the way that he talks, especially at the end, about like not knowing so much things, and he wants to be somebody who is able to tell people about different things and show people different things. I think it's quite interesting, and it was quite fun and very philosophical.
Yeah.
Especially those pictures of people's heads.
The back of the head. For me, it was like the scene when the brother-in-law comes in and they're talking, and he's like, "My head hurts," and he like lays on the bed, and he just comes in, he like throws the picture at him,
Yeah,
and he's like, what is this? And he's like, "Well, you can't see it, so I did it. Well, not you can." He's like, "I did you a favor," or whatever, and he runs away.
Yeah. The brother-in-law is like, "Oh, what the?"
Yeah. And
okay.
And the dad was like,
I get it now.
Yeah, that thing. It is just like genius little moment there,
Yeah. But just like I like the movie because of the fact that you're never given, like, the audience is never told things, they're just watching, right? Like you're never like told through dialogue or something like that what's happening in the movie. You're watching things, and as things unfold, you're trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that from this movie. I think that that's something that not a lot of movies tend to do nowadays, right? Like it's like they usually tell you everything and even more, right? Like they
Sure, yeah. There is no exposition at all in this movie.
Very little.
Yeah,
very, very, very little. And I think that even the way that the camera is positioned in the movie, and the way that he uses a lot of wide shots and shots that are very far away from the actors, and we're kind of like a voyeur, right? We're just like looking into these different scenes and moments. There's even a moment when when the next door neighbors, Lily's family, is like they're like fighting like crazy, right? And everyone in Yang Yang's family, like they hear it, right? but like they just kind of like, oh, they're having a moment right now. And then the next day, next day, NJ and Yang Yang is like by the elevator, and is she the mom with the sunglasses? And Yang Yang, my man, he just goes straight to her, looks at her directly in the face, and she like avoids him.
You good?
You good, dog?
You all right over there? That lady was like,
and then the dad's like, yo, it's rude
what the
to
fuck,
stare,
little
man.
What the fuck are you doing, bro? And I like how they go downstairs and like Yang Yang was straight up like, I want to know what her deal was.
Yeah,
like,
I want to know what was wrong.
I want to know why she was sad.
Yeah. And then the dad's like, oh, okay. Okay.
Like, what are you gonna say?
But yeah, like just the fact that, they allowed the audience to really engage themselves and kind of fill in the gaps with our imaginations and with our inference. I think I really appreciate that about the movie.
Mm-hmm. It really is like a capture into like this family's lives, and I mean like not even just like each member of the family, because it's kind of similar to like A Taste of Tea. If Taste of Tea was like grounded, if it wasn't a silly comedy, it's like in the same format and it explores like each member that way.
Yeah.
But funny enough, like the family themselves hardly ever interact with each other. It's very like branched off. Like everybody's their own little adventure.
Especially the wife, right? You just don't see her.
Yeah,
she's gone.
Not even a character, basically. And so it's really like a deep dive into each of these lives, and it is interesting. Like there is no exposition, and we're just kind of like I said, we're figuring things out, and more of like it's almost like more of like their personal lives are just being unraveled, and different episodes of each lives. Like there are different generations. Like the dad is obviously dad, and like TIng-Ting is a high school teenager, and Yang Yang is like this little 6-7-year-old kid. I think it does a great job in exploring like their lives, like in the age that they're in. Like you said, it's because the dad's is a very like tangible and grounded reality, and he's really like playing like the perfect house dad role, right? Like he's like the problem fixer per se, right? Like the grandmother has a stroke and kind of becomes comatose and stays at home, and he's managing the family and managing how to deal with that and with his wife, and he has he's battling between work, and we're in the weeds with that, and
in his past relationships
and so there's like a lot. He's definitely pretty distant from his own family unit, but we explore like what he's always so busy with, and like what's going on in his personal life. I think that's a really good job of that. And also like I said, with like TIng-Ting, the daughter who's like a teenager, it feels like a little teenage drama in a way. Like what is she dealing with the entire movie is like, I befriended this crazy girl next door who's dealing with like all these relationships in her life, and then she has a crush on like her boyfriend, and then they get together when they break up, and then they have a falling out and get back together, and it's all like,
and then she gets with the teacher of
the mom. The
mom gets with the teacher, but the girl gets with the teacher as well.
Oh,
that's why the boyfriend stabs him at the end.
Okay, that makes sense.
No, very crazy,
situation.
Complicated situation over there for sure.
Probably bit off a little more than you could chew. So it's very like chaotic.
Yeah. So and her, getting with the boyfriend as well, Fatty.
Yeah.
And then they even go to like the hotel, right?
Right.
And then nothing happens, but even just that, like the fact that she is in that position in that moment, I think is like a very coming of age kind of moment, right? Like
it's a step into a different like maturity age, right? Yeah. And even like similar between Yang Yang and TIng-Ting is like they both use the grandmother as like a like a foundation almost as
Mm.
like growing up because they both consult the grandma when she's in a coma for
They all do, right? Even the
yeah
father does at one point.
yeah
Yeah, but yeah, it's pretty interesting. Yeah, like that's like the route that they go back to, right?
right
Like every time that there is something like that, like a big moment like that where they kind of need a place of rest
yeah
and they don't have anyone else to talk to because the dad's busy.
yeah
You know, what are you gonna, what is Ting Ting gonna do talking to Yang Yang? he's in his off in his own world.
Yeah, he's got some answers. Okay.
Like, so she goes to the grandma, and even Yang Yang, he doesn't ever really talk to Ting Ting ever, right? That's a
Nice.
really interesting part. He never really goes talk. Yeah, the dad and Yang Yang talks a little bit, right? They have a few conversations here
Yeah,
and there,
but they're the most together. For
right,
sure.
right,
Yeah.
for sure. But then like,
TIng-Ting.
yeah, who is that?
I have
A
a
sister?
daughter?
I didn't know I had a sister. Like, and like he even goes to the grandma and
Yeah.
Talks to her at the at the end and even kind of in the middle, right?
Yeah. They all have like an episode with her. Like they kind of like dump with her. It's the only person that they can talk to when there's nobody else to talk to. Like you said, and it is good. Like looking at it now, my initial reaction to the ending was like pretty abrupt. I felt like, just because I felt like the whole movie was like a constant stream of things, and then it didn't feel like there was like it was going into a conclusion. Like there's like a gradual like, and now we're over, but it's just like she dies. And then,
I knew that the movie was gonna end when the funeral happened.
right. It is, but befitting.
Because it's like the beginning starts with the wedding,
Yeah.
and then the ending starts with the
funeral.
funeral, and I think that's a very it's very Japanese of them. Of all the movies we watch at the funerals. But yeah, it's a very I think it's a very blatant way of kind of showing that beginning and end of a movie. But yeah, like the exact timing of when they're gonna end. Yeah, like I didn't know like they're gonna end at the end of the speech of the boy. But I think it was a very good ending though. I liked the fact that the kid kind of talks about his philosophical dilemma.
Here's the last one.
Yeah, at the end, and I liked that subtle moment where NJ kind of holds Ting Ting's hand while they're sitting down, and the mother's obviously off on the other side. But just that like little detail, I think, really makes a lot. It shows a lot about kind of their relationship and what the story kind of amounts to.
Yeah, I mean, I do. It is really befitting that with her passing comes into the movie.
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel? I guess just about like the wrap up of the movie. Like once we get to like, I guess like the third act and like, because I do think everybody's storylines do kind of wrap up, even though they wrap up to almost nothing. Like nothing comes about from their plots per se. It just kind of like all becomes neutralized again, and then the funeral happens. What did you think of the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect like a Marvel ending or something, right? Like I wasn't expecting some big climax to the movie or like like seeing some. I guess the murder is kind of a big climax if you think about it.
She's
right?
Like,
it's not anything, right? Like the grandma dying is something. I think it's just the fact that she's such a quiet character just because she doesn't say anything that you don't really think of it as like, oh, like this is a big deal because she's already in a comatose state the whole time. So her dying is a very silent thing. And even how she is found out, right? And like even like Yang Yang's reaction to it, right? He just goes in and then the parents like, oh, I don't think you should be here, and he just goes back into his room. And Ting-Ting comes back from she gets back. She's awake, right? She gets back up from that like weird dream that she had. But that's the interesting part where she still had the butterfly, which was what the grandmother made for her. So it's like a weird weird Blade Runner kind of thing.
Woo!
The unicorn.
The unicorn.
But yeah, like that's pretty. I like that, like subtle, like weird bending of reality in that moment,
Right,
where it's like the whole movie is very grounded, but that one moment is very like, what's going on?
Whoa.
Was that real?
Yeah, yeah.
Was that fake? Was she sleeping?
Trippy.
You know, like
The grandma spirit.
was she awake and then she
moving.
died? Or like what happened? Like that kind of thing was pretty cool. I like that moment in the movie. Just the fact that you're not sure, right? And there is no like concrete answer, and that's a cool thing that you know, if you have in a movie, it's like you talk about that all the time. It's kind of like the ending of Inception when the
Yeah.
top you're like, oh,
But it wobbles.
was it up? Was it down?
Was it
It's
up?
kind of like that moment, and you know, obviously this is not a blockbuster movie, so it doesn't have the same kind of
Yeah, it's
you
not
know,
evoking that.
right. It's not yeah, but it's still kind of doing the same thing where you're made to wonder what that signifies, and I think that's like a very hard thing to do. I think in a movie,
Right.
right? It's not easy to give the audience a moment where they have to pick a side almost like or like contemplate and wonder about this thing and like
Question.
yeah and have different theories or thoughts about it and make the person actually really think about it. That's cool when a director, when a movie is able to do that.
Yeah. It is keeps the conversation going.
I don't think I answered your question, but I mean
you
I kind of
answered
did.
like one.
Like I kind of slid into it and then went back out the other way.
You picked TIng-Ting and you ran with it.
I ran with it. Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is that despite the lack of or I guess debatable
Yeah.
climax of the movie, I think that it still had an interesting way of wrapping it up.
Yeah.
Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, I just thought I wasn't really I don't know, I honestly didn't really know what to expect. I don't think I was really expecting anything like, you know, anything marvelous or something like super conclusive or like or an event per se. But I did think I was like when I thought about it, I was like, oh, like all like the dad's NJ's story kind of like slowly fizzled out basically. Like the biggest thing was his job, right?
Yeah.
With trying to secure the deal with Oda with like apparently there was like two companies, like Oda's company was actually
Atto
like
and Ota, right?
and like oh yeah. Or
Atto, yeah, Atto,
Atto
and then
and then
Ota.
Ota was a guy.
Yeah, Ota was the guy,
think
and
it was like-
Atto was the girl, the 32B or 32
Yeah.
whatever cup. They thought it was a guy, but it was actually a girl, and then the boss like decided to invest with them or whatever.
With that company?
Yeah, or something like that. Some weird, yeah.
So yeah, like when because especially with that story, like there's so much time spent between them, and there's like it dies more out of like yeah we're business clients and like my company wants to do business with your company, and it's like I know your company has doubts about my company, and it's like but I'm sure that we can make it work. But they actually become friends in the mix, and it becomes more about their friendship, and you think that something is gonna like blossom out of that.
Yeah.
But then at the end, it kind of pulls the rug under you, and he's like, "No, we're not gonna go with that anymore. We're actually gonna go with."
And then it
It's
just kind of
alright.
ends there, right?
Yeah, and
It's
then
like,
that's
okay.
literally it, you know.
And then at the end, like near the funeral, like his friend slash coworker comes back and he's like, "Yo, you should come back and work." And then NJ's like, "Nah, dude, chill."
Nah, bro.
Yeah.
And
So yeah, that one kind of fills us out a lot. Like it's like you're like, oh
yeah, like and the same thing with like Sherry with
Yeah,
his
yeah.
old high school sweetheart.
she kind of just leaves, right?
She leaves too because they go on that business trip together to Japan.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, and in that trip, they kind of confront each other, and you kind of realize who Sherry is and like what the relationship was, and they kind of have almost a catharsis about it, but nothing blossoms from that relationship,
Yeah.
but they kind of leave things as they stand, and then like she just ups and leaves by
Yeah.
the end of it, you know. So it all just has like a
There's that moment when NJ kind of almost confesses to Ming
at the
Min
door.
Min.
Yeah.
Yeah, where when she comes back finally from her weird retreat
Mm-hmm.
to the mountain.
Yeah.
And then, NJ talks about how like he kind of had this opportunity to revisit his past, and he kind of confesses to her like, the things that happened, but like he's like, "Oh yeah, but I realized that I would have always just not taken that route."
Right.
That
Right.
kind of thing. So I guess that is more of a wrap up of that story in one sense.
Yeah. It's like a, but even for the wife, like, well, she's gone throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
But even when she comes back, because she's like severely depressed.
She also confesses, right? Or like, has
Yeah,
that moment
that
where she
moment.
talks about.
But her answer is literally like, I realized that it wasn't a problem. like straight up.
Basically.
She's like,
She was like, yeah.
she's like, I was my mom, and they were me,
Yeah.
and they just kept asking me questions and wanted to talk.
See how it
So-
feels to be on the other side.
She's like, her literal like wrap up was, why did I make things more complicated than they are?
Yeah.
You know?
She seems like a person that you would have a really hard time living with. You're like, bro. Like, she has very like big ups and downs, right?
Yeah,
In her emotions.
I really would eventually have to watch this movie again, because I didn't catch the part where she ends up going to the mountains with the Buddhists. Like, what
You don't
sparked
remember
that?
that moment where she was talking. I don't know if you remember the moment where she's like she's like working somewhere in the office, I guess her like
Yeah.
workplace, and one of the women coworkers is like, oh, like,
Yeah.
you should try like, this, I don't know what it is exactly, whatever
Mhm.
weird religion thingy that they're doing, and then like, go back to the master or whatever, and then she's like, oh, I don't think I have it in me to do it. And then later on, we see her like going into this like van with like the Buddhist monks or whatever.
Mm,
You remember that?
I don't think
And
I
that
do, actually.
we're like with NJ, and like he's like driving, and while
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
driving, he sees like Min and like the monks, and like
Yeah.
they're like going into the van, and he's like, oh, I guess she's leaving.
Okay, I think I do kind of remember that.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And then she's gone, and they're like, oh, okay, my wife's
Hey, I guess my wife is out of here.
okay, my wife's gone now, I guess.
It's just me and my kids.
My mom.
Yeah, my mom who's in a coma.
Yeah.
He's like, I think that's his mom and mother-in-law. I think that's his wife.
I guess so, yeah. But
But
yeah, she's an interesting weird character that just comes out of nowhere. And even at the end, like she's crying kind of on her own, and then Yang Yang's like, I want to talk to grandma now. And she's
I
like,
have a
"Yeah, go ahead."
speech. Yeah, I have a speech.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like that just kind of like evokes for like for every family member. Like we talked about Ting-Ting, even for like Yang Yang, it's a little bit like that. But he like carries the torch to the end of the movie for us,
Mhm.
and that's a really nice moment.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like Yang Yang's story the most for sure. There's just like because now that I think I'm comparing Yang Yang to the youngest daughter from A Taste of Tea,
Oh yeah.
where they both share like the kid's sort of innocence
Right.
vibe, but they both have like that monotonic like expressionlessness to them. In
Yeah.
a way, they just kind of like tackle
Like they're
life
searching
straight.
the world.
Yeah, they're really searching like life's
Uh-huh.
answers, but they're only like 6 years old.
Yeah.
But then they do the silliest things to get those answers.
Mm.
So it's like a
There are
very
a lot of
mature-
good moments, I think, for Yang Yang. I really think that he was the highlight of the movie, just because like there's so many moments, like the moment when he is he's like he sees the girl, right,
Yeah.
in that weird dark theater, and the juxtaposition of like that girl, like looking at the girl and the narration of like, oh, the
Yeah.
opposites are attract, and like that's how like life is first created, and it's kind of like that spark moment of him like almost having that like moment of like like understanding what love might be,
Right.
you know, or understanding like what it means to, you know, have that kind of
A feeling.
spark of
He's got like
feeling,
yeah. He's got a
that
little,
kind of puberty moment kind of thing, you know.
right.
And then subsequently after that, like he follows her to the pool, and then
Yeah.
he sees her swimming, and he like goes home, and he's like dunks himself in the water in the sink, and he tries to breathe underwater for as long as possible, and you're just like, this kid, I don't know.
I don't even. But that's what's like so interesting is because he does all these things that at first glance doesn't make any sense,
Yeah.
but it does like come to something.
Right. Or
eventually,
like you kind of understand. Like, it's like the kid level of like understand, like trying to get like trying to figure out life. Right.
Right.
It's like the kid version of it. Oh, she likes to swim. Oh, maybe she likes a person who's able to breathe underwater for a long time.
He's
You know,
like, dunk.
some kind of weird logic, obviously there, and the beauty of it is like, you're not told these things. I'm inferring these things, right?
Yeah.
I'm not.
Exactly.
It's not like the movie is telling me these things. I'm just guessing.
Yeah.
Pulling things out of my butt, trying to figure things out.
Because kids don't make sense.
Yeah, but like that's my inference of like him doing those things, and it's funny because like that's like one moment where Ting-Ting's like, "Hey, what are you doing in the bathroom?" Right? Or was it the nurse? I don't know. One of the person had to like go to the bathroom.
I don't. Yeah.
And they're like, yo, get out of the bathroom. And he's just like, ignore. I'm going to breathe underwater now.
Or like when he's still mad at them, the girls, and he's trying to get back at her, and he's playing with like the balloon for like 10 scenes straight. And then he's like in his bathtub, right? And he's filling it up with water. He's trying to expand it, like make it into a big water balloon essentially. And he's failing in every opportunity he gets. And you're not really sure, like, in the beginning, I'm thinking, oh, he's just playing with the balloon, like kid playtime, innocent, like bath time, essentially, right? Then he gets out of the bath. He's like running around the house naked.
Gets like a funnel.
Yeah, and he goes in the kitchen. He searches for like that big ass funnel, and he's back into the tub. And I'm thinking he's done bath time, but he goes back in. I'm like, all right, what is this kid doing? And he's like trying to use the funnel to fill up the thing, and it doesn't work still, And then it comes back later. He ends up filling it up, and he wants to basically play a prank and like toss it onto the girl, but then ends up hitting the.
I like the very beginning in the movie where like they're playing with the balloons, right? And then like one of the adults popped the balloon by accident or something.
Yeah.
And then Yang Yang's like, oh.
And he's like, the adults got scared.
And then he just runs towards the girls, pops
runs back and instantly cries.
Yeah.
Gotcha, bitch.
What a great
fuck you
moment of like, you guys suck and I'm gonna get my revenge kind of thing,
I'm gonna get back at you.
Yeah.
When they mobbed him in the middle of the staircase and threw
dude,
his shoe.
so messed up.
Hey,
just because he's smaller than them.
Everybody wrongs our boy Yang, bro.
Yeah.
Everybody wrongs our boy. That teacher was scummy.
That teacher is messed up,
That
man.
teacher is scummy, bro.
Yeah.
I was like, all right. Like, one thing, like, he's, like, super disciplinary. Like, he's making fun of, like, he makes fun of, like, the condom bit. It's, like, whatever. Like, that's mean. It really was the picture bit. That was like, come on.
Let him be, man. Let him take his pictures of people's backs and,
let him do his thing,
his mosquitoes
bro.
and stuff.
Yeah. You don't know art. I
know.
You don't know his motive.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
What a deeply philosophical boy.
Yeah, trust the process. Trust the process.
He's trying to show you what you can't see, man.
Yeah, man. You're living a half truth.
See, this is what you're not able to see. You're blinded.
Half truth. Okay? You can only see what's in front. You can't see what's behind you.
He's trying to show you what's behind you, man.
He's trying to show you he's got your back.
Or does he? See, he's trying to make sure that you cover your back, or else you're gonna get stabbed by somebody with that attitude.
That was so funny. He was like, "Here, I did you a favor." Runs away. It's like, what is this? Our boy Yang Yang. Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, I don't know. I don't know what made me believe this was gonna be a coming of age movie.
No, I mean, I think it is in certain aspects.
For the kids, it is.
It's not. It's like when we first started the series and we were expecting, it's because we didn't watch these movies, right?
Nope.
If we did watch the movies, I think we would have probably not picked these movies.
Sure.
Because we were kind of thinking of a more conventional coming of age, where it's very deeply focused on one character and their struggles and how they overcome certain things. Yeah, road trip, or like a school drama or something happens, or like a family drama thing where they come to terms with life or whatever. But
right.
I think I'm kind of happy with the fact that all three movies that we watched, it has an element of that, but then it deviates from that in very big ways as well.
Yeah.
And I think it explores something, broader. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing either,
No.
I have been pleasantly surprised by all three movies.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is a higher up one though, for sure. I think I enjoyed this one more thoroughly than the other two so far.
And this one was long.
This one was really long.
Almost 3 hours, man.
It is 3 hours.
Yeah.
It took me 2 days to watch.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's a heavy
It's
one.
a long one.
Yeah.
But there are so many moments in this movie, I think, that like at first glance you can, like, if you don't pay attention, I think you can just like miss, right?
Yeah.
There's so many things that you just watch and you're like, oh, it really almost seems like you're sitting down on a bench at a park and you're just like watching people and like things go by.
Agreed.
Like you could just literally just miss it if you don't really pay attention to it.
Yeah.
Like for example, like in the very beginning when Ting-Ting's at the balcony and she looks down and when Lily's first having that little moment with the boyfriend.
Yeah.
And Ting-Ting, like, the father calls her because they have to go, and she forgets the garbage.
Yeah.
It's on the balcony.
Right.
And later, like, she talks to the grandma. She's like, "Oh, I'm like, can you forgive me?
That's her.
I don't remember.
conscious.
Yeah, I don't remember if I threw out the garbage or not." And that's like, you have to, pay attention and catch that, or else you don't really notice, because they just kind of and then you're done. They don't like zoom into the garbage and make sure you like see it.
It's like, hey, she's supposed to take that out, guys.
Nah, they don't do that. They just like, it's there in the scene, in the frame. Yep. If you look at it and if you remember it, then you're better than Ting-Ting. And if you don't, then you're a grandma killer.
God dang.
You're a grandma killer.
You're a grandma murderer.
So
step on a crack.
But like things like that, I think, like, really the director carefully thought about it and decided, because like I said, they could have like zoomed into the garbage and be like, hey, this is important, but he chose not to. And I think that really adds to that like, oh, even you as an audience, if you missed it, then you kind of later on you're like, oh wait, what was that garbage there? Like, what, did she actually take it out, or like,
Right, yeah.
And that's pretty cool. I like the fact that he understands the medium so well, and he's able to do that and play with the audience in that way.
Right. Yeah. Just life coasts by. Everything. Yeah, this is like, I mean, there's like a lot of different like layers, different just characters and stories. We haven't even gotten to the supporting characters yet.
Yeah.
Because there are deviation branches in the movie that talk about. I think the biggest one is Audi, the brother-in-law. So he owes the money to NJ, which is his brother-in-law. And I don't know, like his whole story is just kind of like being busted in life.
Yeah, like it's interesting too, because he's a very superstitious kind of guy.
Yeah.
And he like thinks a lot about like luck and being lucky and you know making fortune with luck and all
Yeah.
that stuff. And
what was really uh like neat or like that even I wonder now is because it starts off with his wedding, right, with his wife that's already pregnant. So you kind of assume whatever that went down, and then they eventually have the baby like halfway through the movie. It is a while into the movie before they even give birth, and stuff happens in between that. I think he gets like kicked out and he like comes back,
Mhm.
right? And there's like
there's that moment with like what's that woman like his ex-lover that
Yeah.
comes in,
yeah
Union, right?
union.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And like that party for the when the baby
For the
was first born,
the shower
Right?
or yeah.
baby shower, and then
And
she
like, who
comes
invited her?
uninvited.
And everybody goes crazy.
Yeah, I love that scene because like NJ at the end of that scene is like, oh,
Yeah, he comes in like
with the
mid everything.
big ass present, and he's like, yeah, just keep this. I'm gonna pop out now.
And then his brother-in-law standing next to him, and like the old guy.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, "This is all your fault." It's like, I blame yourself.
You
He
chop
walks
off your dick and feed it to the pigs or something. Like
Yeah.
that. It's like, damn, dude.
Like rip.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
like, yeah.
Not the best baby shower.
But like even for, like his son, like supposedly his son has like a bad horoscope, right?
Mhm.
And everybody's like, "Oh damn, like your son's got bad fortune around him already."
Yeah.
But it's like, well, we can counter it with a lucky name, but he never comes around to naming his.
Yeah,
his
he never
son.
names his son. Yeah. It's pretty interesting. But yeah, that whole character and that side story and like him almost like dying, right?
Yep. Like
in
the
the
gas
shower,
leak
like
or-
in the bath or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and all of that happening, and NJ trying to figure that out with his brother-in-law, along with like all the work stuff.
Right. Because for NJ, like it's not even the whole money owning the debt isn't a big concern for NJ.
Mhm.
Or as I was watching, it never seemed like NJ was holding out on him or had a grudge against him particularly,
Mhm.
or even mistrusted him in any sort of way.
Mhm.
Like he never referred to Adi as like, oh, that's my in debt
Mhm.
brother-in-law, or
Yeah.
there was never that kind of sentiment around it. It was just the opposite take. Like Adi was the one who had the guilty conscience throughout the movie, and it was like, oh, I'll pay you back. Oh, I have this new business venture. Oh, sorry for lending you money, or like, oh, or he in instances he'll even like sidestep him and like go around and try not to confront him because he's too ashamed to go to him more, right? So it's pretty neat to kind of see that dynamic in a movie. That's not something you see all the time either,
Yeah, it also kind of shows you NJ's character, right? Because even when he's with Ota, right, and they kind of have that bonding moment and they become friends and stuff like that. Ota remarks that NJ is like a really good man, like a good person,
Yeah.
and even that relationship with his brother-in-law kind of shows that he's like a really like good dude.
Yeah.
And like even when he owes him so much money and he he has so much problems and stuff like that, he still kind of sticks by his brother-in-law.
Right.
And I think that's why also like at the end when the deal falls through with Ota, he like that's his last straw.
Yeah.
Like the fact that they don't care about any kind of
interpersonal relationship.
yeah, integrity of like an interpersonal relationship and having a sense of being a
People.
decent human being
Yeah.
in terms of keeping their word and stuff like that. And so yeah, like I think it was a good way to show like who NJ is even through that character and all that stuff.
Right. Because my man is dealing with a lot.
Yeah.
He goes through. It's not like he doesn't go through hard times. Like you can definitely kind of see the weight coming on him on certain places.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
obviously, when he talks to the grandmother in that moment, and even every time he is in a room with his wife, you kind of feel that as well, right?
Yeah.
Like
Because he's like, oh, like my wife is no help either. You know what I mean?
It's like I have to solve my wife's issue.
I have my grandmother who's dying, and my wife is like, "Oh, I'm gonna leave now."
Depressed.
He really got the short end of the stick there.
Yeah. He can't consolidate in anybody.
Yeah.
It's only Oda, really, that to whatever extent that is.
Yeah. Even Sherry, right? Like he tries to kind of have the relationship again with Sherry, and that kind of crumbles. Like he kind of realizes, like this is not the woman that I want to be with. He's like, oh yeah, I kind of remember why I left her.
Right. Yeah.
Because of how she was overbearing in one sense, right? Because she wanted him to become an engineer or something like that, and he didn't want to do that. And then
I thought he wanted to be like a musician. I thought he wanted.
Yeah,
he didn't
want to be an engineer.
Okay.
Yeah, and she wanted him to be an engineer, and like she like kind of like
do it
pressured like him. Yeah. Her and his family, I think, pressured him to become an engineer. Yeah, and he didn't want to do that, so he left. And then at the end of the day, he became an engineer. The irony there.
He's like,
well, yeah, just that like kind of moment where he has that realization, and like she comes back to the hotel room, right? His hotel room, and she has that big tantrum.
Yeah.
And then like he has to like. That's kind of his role in everything, right? Yeah. That's like his role for everything. Like he's the one that has to like comfort everyone and be that person in every situation.
Be the supportive guy. Yeah.
And the only person that he kind of has is the grandmother at the quietly talking to the grandma. He's like, "Grandma, I usually don't do this, but I got some issues.
Things are tough right now."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why, like, even for Adi's incident when I guess there's a gas leak and he almost dies in a tub, and like, did he try to commit suicide, or like what happened? And he's like, "What happened, bro? Are you okay?
Yeah.
What did you do?"
I don't know, man. I was just trying to take a bath. Yeah. This dude.
My beeper is ringing. I don't remember what happened. Yeah. And his wife takes him back. And just the whole thing. Yeah, it's pretty. This is definitely a pretty good one. This is a very well received movie in general.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people. This is a staple in just like international movies in general. So I can see why it's long, but I can see why it's really good. It is definitely a great, like, just peek into like a family's lives, but like you said, like in a bird's eye perspective, right? It's like a very voyeuristic in general.
There are a few moments of subjective like viewpoints, but it's very rare. I think it's really rare, and most of the time we're kind of like outside looking in kind of thing, and we're just looking at these characters, a lot of shots of like the cameras outside of the building, and they're like looking in, or like, we're like up there looking down, or stuff like that. It really gives a different kind of feeling to the movie.
It does, yeah.
I like it.
It is pretty, and it's like noticeable too. Like as you watch it, you're like, you get that kind of feeling from it,
Yeah, it's cool because that kind of creates that moment of you're never really with one character kind of thing. You're always just watching from back.
Yeah.
Right. Like when you're with NJ, you're not really with him. Like you're not in his view. Yeah. You're not in his subjective view, but you're like watching him. Navigate. Living in his world. When you're with TIng-Ting, you're like watching her dealing with these things. Yeah. You like under the pass. What is this? The highway, whatever.
The overpass.
The overpass, yeah. The overpass, and all like they're like these little human beings far away, and you're like watching them, and you're like eavesdropping in their conversation, right? Or like, I think, funny enough, I think that we're like closest to Yang Yang's perspective almost, or like we're like closest to him a lot of the times when we see him, right?
Agreed.
Like we're a lot more closer to him.
Yeah.
In terms of how close the camera is to the character. rather than like NJ or Ting-Ting.
I think that's just because he's probably alone for a lot of the times.
Right.
Like we're in a room with him by himself
Mm,
more times than not. It feels
yeah.
like, or at least more than any other character.
Yeah. There are like that few moments with Ting-Ting and few moments with NJ, like especially when they're with the grandma, right? That's like when they get their close ups or like that closer shots. But a lot of times, like those are the very like subjective moments of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But then a lot of times it's just like we're watching them and we're seeing what happens.
Yeah.
And it's a good balance, I think. That kind of having the audience just watch and see what's happening in their lives. As opposed to a lot of different movies where we're really like with the characters and we're almost the character, right? We're like embodying them.
But yeah, it's a movie that's, when we talk about like identity, it is definitely a movie that knows what it's doing and it does it well, and everything supports that, right? Like it is about not one singular character. It is about all these characters, and it is about, you know, their lives at this point in time, and with how it unfolds, with being like not without being given information, like we're kind of watching their day-to-day lives and kind of unraveling their past, what's necessary in their past. You know, mainly with like Sherry and Jay, and just like even the characters in their life, like we have no context to who their friends or their lovers are until like you kind of see them and interact, and it's always left for us to piece together the narrative and their lives essentially, while also giving the space to like watch them do what they do. You know, all that supports like the identity of the movie. It's like we're just kind of watching this family go about essentially.
Yeah, I love the subtle moments in the movie, like when Ting-Ting kind of starts dating Fatty, and then after that, like Lily kind of knocks in the front door of Ting-Ting,
Right.
and then she's like, "Oh, like tell me what, you know, is there anything going on between you and Fatty?" And she's like, she obviously is like, you know, unable to lie, and she says she lies, but then her whole body, you know, her whole like, you know, bodily, you know, motion is like telling her like, oh yeah, like obviously, you know, she has feelings for him or whatever.
Right.
And Lily's like, yeah, you're lying, but I fully understand, right? And she just leaves. You know, those kind of moments, like where it's like, it's just subtle, and then like obviously the character is trying to lie or like trying to be something else, and they're not able to fake it. Or like, you know, the moment when they're like cooking together in Lily's, you know, house. And the parents, the mom, and
take that money,
like
get out of here,
get out of here, you know, like, and clearly Lily is like, oh, okay, this is not cool, you know, like little moments like that where it's very just implied, and I love that about it, because, you know, the dialogue is saying one thing, and you know what's happening is another thing. It's like, it's cool. I like that.
I do like that. Ting-Ting is so contrasted, like as a personality, than basically that whole every character that's part of Lily, because Ting-Ting is pretty mute and very like shy and kind of non-expressive, very reserved. But like Lily is out there. The mom, the teacher, like
the soldier guy, you know?
Right? Like even like Fatty is the one character that shares similarities to Ting-Ting, but then at the end that kind of gets turned when he just berates her.
Well, it's kind of interesting because Lily is kind of like a version of her own mom, right?
Right.
Because the mom also is like promiscuous and also like, you know, sleeping around and lying about it, and you know, has all of that.
And Lee's like, my mom is scum, and then she's like, I'm gonna date this soldier guy.
It's interesting, just like having those implications turn into these moments.
Right. Yeah. It's a mirror looking in a mirror, almost, right? Yeah. And it's just like you feel bad for Ting Ting. It's just like navigating this.
Yeah.
And it's like, but you're involved.
You're
now.
sucked into it just because you're friends with this girl. It's like, that sucks.
Damn. So.
That's why you need good friends, man.
She's just like watching the news and like,
oh yeah,
my ex-boyfriend just murdered that guy.
Good thing it wasn't you, man.
Yeah, I know, right? You got out of there.
Dodged a bullet.
You got out of there just in time.
Or a knife.
You missed the swing.
Oh wait, talking about the murder moment, that moment when like they're like the news is like talking about the murder and then it turns into like that.
Yeah, the fighting video game.
Yeah, I really like that because like, you know, like how they're like in the beginning like NJ's talking about like the game arcade stuff and like you know having to like be the cutting edge and like move forward and stuff like that. And
That's
then
right.
later on, you like you see that game moment. I'm like, that's kind of cool.
I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't hit across my mind.
Yeah.
Those two moments are so far apart from each other, dude. That's like the beginning of the movie, and then the.
I'm trying to connect as much as I can. Okay.
that was a long reference you kept.
Yes. I was like, this is definitely gonna come back. Show me
games,
it.
Video games. He was like, do time.
Yeah.
Stop.
Well, that was funny. Yeah. Yeah. That was an interesting moment because it's like so out of place in terms of like the tone of the movie. And you're like, oh, wow.
But that's Ting-Ting's story. Everything just seems to be just surreal.
Yeah.
In that sense. But yeah, that movie kind of threw me off. I was like...
It's like, what the?
Yeah. What I thought was going to happen, I thought it was going to be like somebody changed the channel and they're like playing games all of a sudden. But then it just was like some weird...
And then Ting-Ting walks by the crime scene. And she goes back into her house.
Yikes or Rowanese. Yeah. Any other conclusive thoughts? Points? Mix?
I enjoyed the movie, as you can tell.
See,
it's fun. Like a movie is fun to talk about when there are moments like these, right? Like when there are things to really talk about, like things that the director has done or moments in the story or like even like things, philosophical things that they're trying to tackle or interesting, you know, dialogue or inferences and stuff like that. Yeah, that makes it like fun to talk about. And I think this movie really gave you a lot of that. It's kind of interesting because just watching it, like it's not a typical fun movie, right? It's not like a...
No, it's pretty slow paced.
It's very slow paced. It's 3 hours long.
Oh yeah, also runtime, yeah.
But just like having that eye to want to see more into it, it really gives you like you get a lot back if you do that. Like you're rewarded for that.
Sure.
Some movies, you know, you're not really rewarded for that. They just feed you, like they spoon feed you everything.
Mm-hmm.
But this movie, if you really, you know, want to, you know, dive deeper into it, you will be rewarded for it. And I think that's a cool thing about the movie. Yeah,
nothing is really explicitly laid out for you in this movie. Like we talked about, there really is no exposition, very little. You just have to pick up the characters and pick up how they all interplay with one another and like how does this person relate to that person? How does that person who came from that person's past life has to do with this person, you know? Or like there are new characters like how it's like, you know, Lily is a new character for Ying Yang, right? Like she was never a childhood friend or anything like that. So it's like, oh, how is that going to kind of unfold? So it's a constant going like investigation almost. You just kind of have to pay attention really to keep up with the story.
Yeah, it's also kind of interesting because like that's how we kind of meet human beings too, right?
Yeah.
Like we're not giving like the whole context of another person.
Right.
We just meet them and we have to infer about them. And I think this movie kind of does that for all the characters as well.
Yeah.
As an audience, we do that with them as well. We're not like given a backstory about who they are. Or, like we don't go into their past and like we see, oh, like they were an orphan when they were young and this is why they are like this. So, you know, we're not given anything like that. We're just kind of like, this is who they are now. And these are the things that they're dealing with. And you can, you know, see who they are through that.
Yeah.
How they deal with that, which is cool.
Yeah. So it's pretty good. And there are more layers to pick up. Like, I mean, tell me why he didn't name his child. Why didn't he name his child? You know? Give me Yang Yang's answers. What does he know about life that we don't know?
Dude, when they first when Yang Yang and NJ are like in the car and like he first like starts asking a question, I'm like, bro,
What?
whoa,
Relax.
relax,
Down.
yeah,
Slow
slow down, man. You're asking questions that even like like 80-year-olds don't ask.
The dad had to put that to a stop. He was
Yeah, he's like,
you're asking a lot of good questions today.
How about I ask
I-
you the real question?
Yeah. Should we get your mom ice cream? How do we cheer up your mom?
Yeah.
You know, let's go back to the important things. You know.
It's like, do we only know half truths, or do we live life only knowing the half truths? Like, bro, relax.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's cool. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, that was good.
Kid is my favorite. Funny kid.
Oh, Yang Yang. He jumps into a pool with his clothes on. That kid's a trooper. But yeah, I think that this is a good one. This is definitely at least a one-time watch. I would definitely say this is a good one to see. But we're almost done now.
Yes.
You know, maybe we'll get back on track. I think we've derailed far enough that I don't even care anymore.
We'll see. We still got one left.
Yeah,
One left in the chamber.
Yeah, one. You know, since this one's my pick. You know, Yi was his pick.
Yi and Bori was my pick.
Was Yi actually your pick?
Yeah, it was
Oh,
actually
was
my
it?
pick. Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was my pick.
Nah.
Okay. I'm not gaslighting here. You're a witness. Yeah, next week will be the last movie, and it'll be Good Morning from 1959, directed by Ozu. Yosujiro Ozu. So, should be a classic. I think this one was kind of almost undoubtedly coming of age, because isn't it about like the son, like a kid dealing with his family, like his parents, like he's like a bad kid.
Undoubtedly. 100%. We made sure.
Yeah. We watched the trailer this time. We swear. Yeah.
A lot of Ozu deals with that kind of thing.
It's all family
Family drama and
yeah.
also coming of age and realizations and family dilemmas and
Right. Yeah.
stuff like that. So
So it should be good. I mean, the last Ozu film was really good. That
Yeah.
was pretty
springtime, right?
springtime.
Or was
So-
it just spring? I don't
No,
know.
I think it wasn't just spring. It was spring something.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Good Morning from 1959. That'll be the next one. Looking forward to it. And then that will be the wrap of the series. And we move on to this new year. So we'll see you there next week. Peace.
Bye.